What's happening, CSTers? Welcome to the big show this Monday evening. Glad you're with us. I am Nick Suberling. We're doing something here this week on the show that over the past 3 years, I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to do, and that is to talk about not one, but two wins for FC Cincinnati in a week. Two, count them, 1-2. FC Cincinnati wins last week against the Chicago Fire 1-0 and against Toronto FC 2-0. And what a difference a week makes, FCC fans. So we're going to talk about the two matches and, again, get excited for what's happening with the orange and blue. So we want to hear from you if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Get in touch with us. Feedback at Cincinnati Soccer Talk is the email address to do just that. Or you can hit us up on Twitter as well at Cincy Soccer Talk. All right, let's welcome in my cast of characters for this week. I will start with Clay Winstead. Clay, welcome back to the program, sir. How are you?
It feels good. We're going streaking. It feels great, right?
Yeah. Streaking, yeah. I like it.
I'm feeling free, running through the woods, just streaking. 2 wins in a row. It feels fantastic.
Well, let's quickly move on from that, shall we? Glad to have you back on the show as well. I'm also excited to have back on the program Mr. Tall Paul himself, Paul Barbanchek. Paul, welcome back to CST. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, Subes. I'm living the dream. And after FC Cincinnati won 2 matches in 1 week, I think it's a dream that I don't want to wake up from.
I like the sound of that. Glad to have you back on the show, Paul, to get your thoughts on what went down last week with FCC. And last but certainly not least, we welcome back the Wolfman, Bill Wolf. Bill, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm doing great. Wow, yeah, everybody's still amazed, as am I, of the results of the last couple, games. But yeah, I think more than anything, I'm just kind of feeling nice to be back in the chair. It's been a little bit, I think. I can't remember the last time I've been on the show. So, woo.
Well, glad to have you back on the show, Bill. Yes, we are excited. And for those of you who are wondering if I am partaking, that sound you're hearing is the sound of me opening up another summer shandy, folks, because this must have been the good luck charm. I had them last week on the show. I will continue to drink summer shandies as FCC continues to win. This is also, I'm drinking this twofold. Not only is it good luck, but I threw my back out over the weekend, and so I just want to get hammered so I can't feel the pain. So anyway, we're drinking some summer shandy tonight. If you're partaking tonight as well, cheers. Let's offer up our best and worst. So, Clay, I'll start with you. Your best and worst from the past week in the orange and blue.
Oh, man, yes. Cheers to the shandy. That's probably one of the best of the week. But I will say that my best is getting peak Lucho Acosta from 2018. Matt Doyle's even saying it on Twitter. It's just he looks back. I've been doing player ratings, so I've been digging through a lot of stats, watching the matches over and over, and it's just amazing how much he creates for the team. He's a one-man engine room. He's fantastic. That goal, it's sad to see Michael Bradley pass away like that, to lose his life and have his ankles frozen in cement. But, Acosta just had to do what he had to do. If I had to think of my worst, it's really weird to find something like that to nitpick. It's such a great problem to have, because I think the team has played pretty well against Chicago and Toronto. But I would say my worst is Yuya Kubo's tackling. He's really embraced his role in the midfield, and I'm really grateful to see him improving. But, man, he goes in late a lot. There's a lot of sloppy challenges, a lot of fouls conceded near the box, losing a lot of duels in the midfield. With Alan Cruz leaving the midfield, I'm sure, for the next couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll talk about this. But Kubo's going to have to be a lot more disciplined in the midfield if he's going to be able to contribute like we need him to. So that, it's a nitpick. I'm glad it's something really specific. But yeah, that'd be my worst.
All right. How about you, Paul? You got a best and worst from last week?
I do. My best would probably be the start of the game against Toronto. That ball from Isaac Atanga to Alan Cruz was absolutely spectacular. And it really, for the first time, I think this season, and honestly, as far as I can remember, we actually set the tone and we scored first and we were able to build off of something. And this team seems to actually be able to do well when they're able to start and then can build rather than having to try to come from behind, which is a tough thing to do for anyone, let alone FC Cincinnati. My worst would probably be the heart attack that I had at the end of the Chicago game when I thought we blew it. Thank goodness for offsides and VAR existing. After that, I'm a little bit more of a VAR fan than I used to be. So, but yeah, I screamed and it scared my girlfriend and it scared the dogs, and nobody likes that. So hopefully we can avoid that in the future.
All right, Bill, your best and worst?
Yeah, I think they're kind of hand in hand a little bit, or at least yin and yang to each other. For my best, I've been kind of pleased with the way that this team comes out with an intensity. I like the press and the intensity that we start games with. What I would say, having won 2 games, right? What's the worst of winning 2 games? But what I actually saw that bothered me the most was once we got ahead, all that intensity that we had left. And it just seemed like, especially with Chicago, we got that goal, in the 50th minute, and then we just sat back for the rest of the game and just waited for them to, not score, luckily for us. But we were playing for 1-1, in my opinion. I mean, we were not in a good situation in that game, and we definitely scrambled a lot. And the same thing I felt even with this, the Toronto game, where we ended up 2-0 in that game. We started off the first half with intensity. We got a really early goal, and then we kind of died off really pretty hard. It wasn't until like the last 5 minutes of the first half that we kind of brought it back again. And I think that's something that we need to address is that, when you've kind of got, your teeth on the throat of your victim, right? You don't, open your mouth, right? You close it. And we don't seem to understand how to do that right now.
Interesting. My best and worst are going to be a lot different than all y'all's. I can't believe we've gone about 7 or 8 minutes into this show and nobody has talked about Alvaro Barrial's free kick. What a beauty of a free kick that was. Yes, of course, it was upstaged by Lucho Acosta's goal against Toronto, but Alvaro Barrial, I think, and I could be wrong, we'd have to go back and look at the stats, but I'm pretty sure that might have been FC Cincinnati's first goal off of direct free kick. I could be wrong about that.
I think you're right.
It's pretty rare.
It's probably been Ledesma is probably the last one who did it.
And not an MLS.
I don't
think he did it in MLS either. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, best Alvaro Barrio, and getting better and better by the week. This is a guy who, came in last year, a lot of question marks. We didn't see a whole lot from him. And now he's arguably written in ink in the starting 11 for FC Cincinnati at the moment. So he's my best. My worst, and I'm going back to the Chicago game for this. This match should have been over in the first half. If FC Cincinnati could finish, they have to finish chances. This is not a team that gets a lot of opportunity in front of net. And so when you're there, you have to finish. Acosta should have had a goal in that first half. There was a couple of other chances. Yes, they had 7 shots on target in the first 22 minutes of the match, but they made Bobby Shuttlesworth look like Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, he broke a record.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Did he really?
Yeah. Most saves in a game.
There you go. So for me, FCC's got to get better at finishing. Just it has to happen. So the fact that they went into that Toronto match, first 5 minutes, beautiful pass from Atanga to Cruz, and they get going. That's great. I want to see you finishing more and more chances. It's great, that you look at the stats against Colorado, had a ton of shots on target, had a lot of shots on target against Chicago. Yes, let's see more of that, but you've got to take your chances, because otherwise, with a shaky. Now, granted, defensively, they have been good the past 2 weeks. I say past 2 weeks, the past 2 matches. Again, worst teams in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on that, but still, you can't trust this defense to be able to keep clean sheets. So when you're in front of goal, FCC's got to finish.
Yeah, was always the thing that we talked about with progress was, at least they're creating chances. And that's true. I'm really glad to see us have, what was it against Chicago? 12 shots on target by halftime. But now the next step up is finishing. So you're absolutely right, Subs. It's not just about creating chances anymore. This team needs to start taking even further steps up. And the next step is hitting the back of the net.
Yeah.
I think it's even deeper than that, though. I mean, we played essentially the bottom two teams in the league, right? We were at the bottom, but we were tied on points with Chicago. Toronto had one more point than us. If we did not get points out of these two games, then we were indicating very clearly that we were still wooden spoon material. And we may still be wooden spoon material if the rest of the season doesn't go well. But at this moment, we have shown that we're better than at least the two bottom teams. We've stepped above them, and we show some potential to climb out of that bottom rung we've been sitting in for 2 years.
Apparently, we just need to play all our games on the road, which does not bode well for this brand new stadium that FCC has built.
Don't tell Lindner that.
And the fans, right? We should just go away. They don't need fans, right?
Yeah.
Montreal, Toronto, both played in Orlando with 0 fans.
That's it. We actually just need to, like MLS's back tournament, we just need to play in Orlando without fans.
Well, Montreal was in Miami, but just say Florida.
Okay,
we'll just
say Florida. Sorry,
Florida,
you're right.
No fans.
And it wasn't Miami, was it? It was Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, you're right.
Technically, yes.
Yes, you're right.
See?
So, again, we're nitpicking, right? I mean, look, this was a great week for the Orange Blue. Historically, just going off the top of my head, this is probably the best string of results FC Cincinnati has had since, I think, 2019, I think is what Jeff Tebbets on our staff brought up in our Slack today. I think it was the draw against Atlanta and then the win against Portland, if I'm not mistaken. And then you think you beat New England?
Yeah. So we had the 2 back-to-back wins, Portland, New England in 2019. And then in 2020, MLS is back. We beat Atlanta and Red Bulls, technically MLS regular season games in the group.
Good point. So yeah, a lot to be excited for. At the same time, cautious optimism, because again, yes, it's great that FC Cincinnati is getting results, but they should get results against teams that, let's just say on paper, aren't as good as they should be, right? I mean, Chicago and Toronto, Toronto has lost 5 or 6 now on the spin.
We didn't see Pozuelo either.
Didn't see Pozuelo, exactly.
Or Altidore.
That's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
But as Matt Doyle said on Twitter, the first thing to becoming a good team is beating the bad teams. And when's the last time FC Cincinnati met expectations and achieved them?
Yep.
These are 2 winnable games and they won them. That's pretty good.
So those are our best and worst. We'd love to hear from you. What were your best and worst? Get in touch with us. Feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, or you can email us or hit us up on Twitter at CincySoccerTalk. Let's read some of these, shall we? We've got some. I'm going to scroll back through here, some of these comments. Eric Schmidt says his best, the last 20 minutes when FCC were killing off the game and they couldn't stop us. Toronto were well and truly beaten, and they knew it. Mark Klippinger says best, watching FCC beat Chicago in person. So that's great. He got to go to Soldier Field and check out the match. So good for you, Mark. Funny story about that. My buddy, Corey Finneran, is an FCC fan who went to the game in Soldier Field, had some seats down near one of the corner flags, and they were setting up for the free kick. He took a dip of his nachos into the cheese and looked down and missed the goal. He had a full-on Heineken moment.
Oh.
Sorry, Corey. But he got to see FC Cincinnati win, so it's good, exciting for him. Alex on YouTube, his best, watching Acosta freeze Michael Bradley on his feet. Worst, not a lot to complain about, but if I did, it would be watching Vermeer scramble and make late decisions to come off his line. Congrats to Kenneth Vermeer, notching his 100th clean sheet in his club career, so kudos for that. Back-to-back clean sheets. Hard to argue with the results the last 2 games, but he's kept clean sheets. Was it pretty? No, but he got the job done, Paul. As I put you on the spot for that new button.
Yeah. No, and that's why the FC Cincinnati goalkeeper situation has always been intriguing to me, but I'm a guy who loves advanced analytics, advanced stats, but ultimately it comes down to getting the job done. And Vermeer getting 2 clean sheets in a row is getting the job done. And also, I think it has to go back to building some consistency, too, of knowing how your goalkeeper is going to play, knowing how your center backs are going to play, and that relationship from building out in the back. So as long as they're continuing to build defensively and they get clean sheets or they only allow a goal, I think that that's a relationship that you're going to have to stick with throughout the season. might be a little different than what we first thought, but if it gets points, it gets points. And as a fan, I don't care how they do it. I just want to see us get points.
Bill, do you have thoughts on the goalkeeping situation?
Yeah, I mean, from a stat standpoint or whatever, I don't really know how he stacks up. Obviously, clean sheets are awesome. For me, there's just sort of that eye test, and there's something about Vermeer that just scares the living hell out of me.
He even makes the easy ones look hard.
So I actually heard somebody refer to him as schizophrenic, and I think that's actually sort of right. I mean, it's like one moment you think, oh, that's a goal, and he does this incredible thing, and you say, holy cow, that was great. Look at that. And then the next, it's like, oh, what did he just do? And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And maybe Paul's right. Maybe it comes down to, he came in late. Cameron's come in late. Viasia's come in late.
They didn't have a preseason at all.
They didn't have a preseason to even learn each other at this point. Yeah. So the three of them are still figuring things out a little bit. It certainly is improving. Some of it is the competition, obviously, in the last two games, but even beyond that, even the eye test, I think it's improving. That they seem like the communication's improving, and they're starting to figure things out. So, I mean, you don't change it when it's not broken, right? So right now, I mean, I think those three are in a lock.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what Przemysław Teton did to get demoted. I thought he was having he got a bit knocked up. And he didn't play a lot after week 1. I still really like him. He finally gets his green card. You think that's a good news? And then we make way for Vermeer. And I'm not exactly sold on him either. But Bill and Paul, I think you'll both make excellent points at this point. They've started 6 matches in a row together. We're starting to see some improvement from the defense as a whole. You probably just have to, I think you just need to stick with those. If you're going to stick with those guys, stick with them. Give them that confidence. I think moving to Teton now, who I might prefer as keeper, that just makes it, that just shuffles cards you probably don't want to at this point, particularly when we're going to have to see some changes in the lineup for the next couple of weeks anyway. You probably want to keep that defense as consistent as possible.
Yeah, the goalkeeper situation, I think you play with a hot hand, right? I mean, at this point, I don't see them going back. I just... I don't. There's a reason why they brought Vermeer in.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they gave up what they gave him, and using an international spot for him, he's going to play. Yeah. So now the question is, from a budget standpoint, what are you doing with your backup goalkeeper? That's way over my head. That's where Ken Hetker and Brad Weigel get involved when the salary budget tracker. But so we'll see. Again. Yes, it's exciting. FC Cincinnati keeping 2 clean sheets last week. Again, worst 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. I think it's okay to be excited. I also think it's okay to be cautiously optimistic with what's going on. And I know you have more to add on that, Paul.
Yeah, and we talk about how Vermeer is kind of like worries us a little bit, but I think we kind of forget about the moments, maybe not as much this year because we haven't seen it as often. But last year, there were moments with Teton where I'm like, oh, God, why did you try to go make that save? Mm-hmm. And so that argument to me it's not my favorite just because I remember that of being like, there was some moments where Teton didn't pass the eye test with me. So I feel like people get on that with Vermeer. And I'm just like, I don't feel like that's really fair because I think there were questionable moments with Teton as well. So moving forward, it'll be interesting to see if when they build some more chemistry, if they start to do a little bit better in terms of passing the eye test.
Yeah, I think for me, it all comes down to just style of play. And I don't know that either player is better or worse than the other one. They both have moments, they both good and bad. I think, Teton, especially in those early games, and maybe it was more a reflection of the people in front of him, but he definitely was more into the bombing the ball down to the other end. And, I know that the team obviously has the style they want to play out of the back. That's what Stom wants to do. It's visual in what they're doing now. And Vermeer is much more comfortable rolling that ball, out to Matarrita or Cameron or whoever and starting to build it up from the back. And I think Teton wasn't, and that's probably what it comes down to in the end.
Yeah, I think and again, you just look at the distribution, and you clearly, and to be fair, Teton was not brought in when Stom was the coach. I mean, he was brought in with the thought that somebody else was going to be running this team.
Alan Koch.
Yeah. So again, it is what it is. But again, I go back to what was given up to get Vermeer, in order to have him on this roster. It's still some question marks on, is he a senior? I think it was cleared up by FCC that he is not on the senior roster, but on the supplemental roster. Again, still taking up an international spot. And so, he's going to be playing for the foreseeable future, at least in my humble opinion here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. But again, we'd love to hear from you folks. Cincinnati feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. You can hit us up on Twitter as well at Cincy Soccer Talk. All right, it's that time of the show where we give a big shout out and thanks to our tremendous supporters. So let's give it up to Tim Bronsel, Tom Rose, Matt Adamchick, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Coling, Tara Mullins, Riley, Stephen Burke, and Melissa Bingle. Thank you so much for supporting us here at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. To learn more on how you can support the show, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. So let's dive in a little deeper, gentlemen, and let's take a look back at the Chicago match on the road there at Soldier Field. And let's talk a little bit about the first half, right? Because I almost feel like it was a tale of two halves. FC Cincinnati should have been up 3 or 4-0 going into the halftime locker room. In the second half, Chicago could make the case that, well, maybe they should have been up or at least tied the match, and just by the skin of their teeth, the VAR gods were on their side. I made a tweet afterwards, and there's been a long debate amongst the CSTers about how great VAR is and how great it isn't. And Ken Hetger, for the record, hates it. He has been a vocal opponent of VAR since its implementation. Like he's going to die on that hill. And I kept telling him, I was like, there's going to come a day where VAR is going to save our butts. And sure enough, it did. So again, first half, really good FCC. Second half, they got the lead. And as you said, Bill, they kind of sat back and welcomed and invited that pressure. And we're very fortunate to walk out of there with 3 points.
100%. I mean, I think, even in the 80th minute, I think Stom finally just gave in. I'm not even sure it was his plan to do so, but in the 80th minute, right, he went to 5 in the back and just bunkered down. But before that, we had an opportunity to put that game away, or at least continue to press and keep them off of us, and we didn't. And I don't know why we did that. And again, like I said, I don't think that was Stom's plan. He actually made a comment in the post game, like, we need to keep pressing. We need to, we dropped too deep. And if that's not what he wants, he's gonna have to figure out a way to communicate that to the team, because I felt like they did it against Toronto as well. So.
Yeah, there were stretches against Toronto where first half and into the second where their possession was so slow, and they were just holding on. And if anyone like me has had the misfortune of watching a lot of Tottenham Hotspur football in the last season, watching a team try to defend a 1-0 lead for more than a few minutes at a time, it's stressful, and it's not painful. Fun. No. So I really hope that those last two matches are not a trend going forward, because he, in the 52nd minute against Toronto, he went to the 5 at the back as well, brought on Hagelin for Atonga. So I hope that's just a particular game adjustment and not a trend, because I mean, there's not a team that's used to, I think, holding on to leads, and they're not used to pressing forward. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward, for sure.
Yeah, I was more comfortable with it after the second goal against Toronto, because there you're holding a 2-goal lead. It may have been a little early to make a tactical change in that sense, but certainly to start the bunker could make a little bit of sense. But even there, 2-0 is pretty dangerous. It's 1 goal and the other team is right back in it. So I don't really like teams that bunker a whole lot. But to be fair, you have 2 games in the same week, or 3 games across a 1-week span, right? And you're down in Florida playing in heat and humidity in your third game, and you're up 2-0. So maybe from a player standpoint, it makes sense to start to conserve. But
Yeah, and I'm at least heartened by Stom saying, no, I wanted them to press forward. I wanted them to get after it. Our possession's too slow. We're holding on to the ball for too long. We need to be quicker. I was like, okay, that's good. At least it's not obviously intentional then. It is something that the team is still working on doing. So at least Stom recognizes that, and hopefully will be working towards it going forward.
I go back to that Chicago match. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
And to add on to that, I think a little bit, I don't like prevent defense in any sport, especially soccer. It doesn't work for me in FIFA, and it doesn't seem to work for a lot of teams across the globe when you're playing prevent Bucker down 1-0. But also, too, I think going back to it, FC Cincinnati's got to finish some chances. I think the goal on the free kick by Barreal, I think he was the first player to have multiple goals scored this season for FC Cincinnati. So they have to figure out someone. I mean, Brenner, the obvious one, but they got to figure out someone who's going to take charge and say, I'm going to be the goal scorer for this team, because that'll also help you get into those situations where it's 2-0 or 2-goal lead, or, maybe by some miracle, a 3-goal lead where you can play that prevent defense and it won't kill you if you allow a goal.
Well, there should have been another goal in that game against Chicago, and Brandon Vasquez, one-on-one with the keeper. I mean, I know he's going for the cheeky chip, but dude, come on. Like, no. you gotta, like, you're one-on-one with the keeper for like 80 yards.
Yeah, when you come in as a sub in a game or whatever, and you get a chance like that, you don't get cheeky.
Yeah, Vasquez can get frustrating because he often just draws off sides. He tries to do things he probably shouldn't. I will say, though, to be fair to him, the way he set up Acosta for the assist, drawing 3 defenders out of the penalty box to give Acosta a one-on-one on Michael Bradley, that's smart positioning. You're right. The attempted chip shot against Chicago is just painful. It was awful. And it really hurts Vasquez defenders like me. It's like, no. But he did do very well in his brief stint against Toronto. So
at that point, you score that goal. If you score that goal, though, you've killed the match off. There's no way Chicago is going to score 2.
No, you're right. I'm trying to stay positive on him. I'm trying and desperately.
And we got lucky too, right? I mean, there was a play in the second half, and I'm glad Jeff Tebbets in our chat room on YouTube brought it up.
I saw it.
Keep in mind that our blunder versus Chicago failed in comparison to Barich's gaff. I mean, I don't know how he didn't score. I mean, I genuinely, I look at that replay and I look at the physics behind all of it. Like, how does that ball not go in the net? I mean, he's unmarked inside the 6.
Yeah.
It's Jurgen Locadia-esque.
Yeah, we actually just voodooed all of Locadia's stuff over to him.
We just gave the monkey paw away.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But, let's also just talk about it for a moment, right? Everybody loves a wonder goal from Barreal, right? But it was also Beric's gaff there too, right? He's the only guy who didn't leap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Went right over his head.
Yep. That's one of those where
he did not have a good game.
No. No.
He was the one who got caught offsides too, right? He was the one who scored the offsides goal that got disallowed.
It might have been, yeah.
Yikes!
But
you hate to see it.
This is where MLS will drive you nuts, because they follow up our match with a 3-3 with Philly.
Yeah.
Now, 2 of those goals came on set pieces, but still, like, anyway.
People talk about parity,
Yeah.
Toronto could come out and, that's the thing about Toronto. They were second in the Supporter Shield race last season. So I don't know how the mighty have fallen.
Oh my gosh. I have to read this comment from Facebook, Clifford Adams, in regards to the Vasquez
I saw
miss in Chicago. He says, I think Vasquez was stunned by the opportunity, like seeing a naked chick for the first time in a long time. Hard to argue that, Clifford. Hard to argue that.
Got frozen.
I always try to chip naked chicks.
That's going to be cut up and used for the future. Thanks a lot, Bill. We got this question on YouTube from Will. How much credit do we give Jeff Cameron for reforming our defense? Bill, you brought up a great point about Cameron and Viacia. They've gotten a lot better since those two and Vermeer have been inserted into the starting lineup.
Well, I said this earlier in the season, and I'll come back to it. We were struggling a little bit, and obviously we had some games where we had a lot of bleeding going on in the defense. And I said, I think right now we need a veteran defender back there who can lead the back line, who can organize it and help all of the people around him get better. And I think Cameron was that guy. I give him a lot of credit for what's going on. And you see him out there continuously talking and pointing and directing. And I see it in ways that are really important. Things like like Joe Zhao, right? So obviously he's new to the right back position. Some people love him, some people hate him. But regardless, he needs to learn that role a little bit, right? He's used to being higher up on the field, not having as many defensive responsibilities. I see Cameron doing things, directing him. Like there was one example I saw where Zhao had a player. He was marking that player. The player passed to another player, and Zhao ran towards the ball, right? He basically left his mark behind. And Cameron was like, get your butt back over on the guy you're marking. That one's mine, right? I mean, you don't need to do it all. We're a team. And that's the kind of stuff that, earlier on, our guys were all just running around like chickens. And then, the ball would end up pop loose with somebody who was unmarked because we were all trying to chase the ball rather than, working as a team. And I see that from Cameron a lot. He makes a difference for sure.
You don't just see Cameron doing it. You can hear him. It's actually insane watching back some of the, I think it must have been against Chicago. I could hear him yelling on camera, like wherever the Soldier Field camera operator was. It's insane. And we have to think about Cameron and Viacia played at the the TQL Stadium opener. Cameron showed up that Thursday in training, I want to say. Viacia was cleared to start that week as well. Yeah. These guys haven't had a preseason to get to know each other. They haven't had time to organize themselves. And you can see now they've started six consecutive matches, that is paying off, that they're finding some consistency among each other. And I honestly think Viacia is talented enough. Cameron is experienced and smart enough that they can still just get better as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think Viacia was like a week ahead of Cameron. If you remember, that was the game with Pedersen, right, where he got hit in the head and he was bleeding. And they were like, well, we have no center backs but Viacia, who's been here for a day. So they started warming him up. And fortunately, Pedersen's like, nah, just wrap me up and let's go.
That was Orlando, wasn't it?
It sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think, you can tell, Stom's on this touchline. A goalkeeper is usually way away from the team a lot of the time. You need a center back who's constantly kind of a coach on the pitch, who's constant. And I'm sure our coach Goff has talked about this plenty. You should listen to Talking Tactics for more. We have Justin Hoyt now. It's pretty great. He's constantly, as you said, Bill, just directing people, telling them when to stay compact, telling them when to go forward. It's really, I think someone mentioned this in our comments. He showed up 2 days playing against Miami, and everyone's looking to him for guidance and leadership. It's incredible how fast he's found some leadership on the team.
Well, I think it speaks to him as a player and his character, but it also speaks to the need, right? That the team was rudderless back there, which is interesting. Obviously, kind of having Stom as a coach, you would think that the defense would be very organized, but it shows that there has to be somebody on the field. You need a field general. So
it's been refreshing to see, right? I mean, the FCC
100%.
Really haven't had that. I'm going back in their history. What, Deckel? Probably their last field general that they had.
That's a good call out.
I mean, he was the one guy that exuded leadership for that 2018 team, and look what happened. They had a tremendous year. I mean, I know he didn't play every game, but man, when he was on the field, you could tell he was that field general and got him going. The
Deckel smash too. That was important.
That's true. That is another podcast, KLR. That's their thing. But yeah, the Deckel smash was a big thing. I agree. I agree, definitely. So great week for FC Cincinnati. They get 6 points out of 6. They knock off the 2 worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Now they will take on a Houston team without Alan Cruz, and Ronald Mazzarita will be off on international duty with Costa Rica for the Gold Cup. So we'll talk about how FC Cincinnati might plan on their departures. But there was also a confirmed departure. I think we all saw this coming for many, 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 many months. But the club officially saying goodbye to Jurgen Locadia, the designated player on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion, will now be returning to his parent club. I guess there was talk about maybe bringing him back potentially, but there was no way that FC Cincinnati were going to pay the transfer fee based on the field results. If my math serves me correctly, I don't think he scored enough goals. That's just my 2 cents there.
3 total.
Talk about a letdown. One, bummer that it just never worked out.
Mhm.
2, frees up an international spot. 3, frees up some much needed budget allocation for the club to pursue something this summer in the transfer window. So
Frees up a DP spot.
Frees up a DP spot as well, Bill. You bring up a great point. So what do we make of the Jurgen Locadia era in Cincinnati? I mean, Clay was the big Adi guy on our staff, and like that was a pretty devastating era for FCC. Who scored more goals? It's got to be Locadia
by
barely.
one.
By
By
one.
one.
5 goals from 2 of your DPs.
Well,
in
if you
3
consider MLS era, yes.
Yeah. But
Addy
not per
scored
dollar.
1.
Well, that's
No.
even worse than if you go MLS era.
Yeah. Addy scored 1 in MLS. Locadia scored 2 in MLS. And then Addy had 1 in the Open Cup against Louisville. St. Louis. No, it was Lou City. And then Locadia had the 1 against Portland in the MLS is back tournament knockout rounds, which is not technically the regular season. Yeah, 3-2.
Yeah,
I mean,
but per dollar, Audi was a better striker.
Bill's my guy. No, that's the thing. And I think what's different about the Addy situation is Locadia is leaving with not a lot of ill will. It's more disappointment than people were ready to drive Addy to CVG themselves. I mean, they were ready to get him. I mean, he probably couldn't drive himself because of the his driving situation. But people were willing to take him to the airport. They're like, get him out of my club. I don't want to see him. There was a lot of animosity toward him in the club and in the fan base. Locadia
he brought that on himself.
Oh, no. And I'm not saying he did it. I'm saying that's sort of how the situation ended.
There was a lot of body language.
Right. No, I mean, yes. I mean, we don't need to relitigate.
Well, there was
that.
also some verbal stuff too. But
Right. And the formal complaint to MLS Players Association, all that stuff. No need to relitigate it. I don't want to assign blame either way. There's a whole lot of situation. And Addy, as you said, invited a lot of it. But when he was done, people were ready to see the back of him like nothing else. Locadia, it's more of just, we wish it worked. But I think what's helpful is it was just a loan. Yeah, we were paying DP salary to him. But, now it's a pretty clean break. And I think the writing was on the wall when they signed Brenner. That was clearly their contingency plan to say maybe they could work. Maybe we could play Locadia on the wing. Maybe we can renegotiate the loan or whatever. Who knows? But when Brenner shows up, that's your guy now because you've paid that money already. Locadia, we never paid the transfer fee for yet. So, it is disappointing. I wish him the best, but it was not going to work.
Yeah, if we're comparing situations, man, it's tough to determine who was a bigger letdown because I remember right before COVID started, that first game, I want to say it was against the Red Bulls that he came on and he scored in his first match. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And it kind of, traditional Cincinnati fashion got my hopes up just enough for them to be crushed, in a really bad sense. But when we look back at, and this might be part of it too, just because of how COVID kind of played a factor. But I remember with Audi, it was like, this was a huge deal. Mm-hmm. This, they were both at the time considered to be the biggest signing in club history. But Adi's was a huge deal. There was a lot of fanfare, big press conference with him and Fatai Alashe, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We had the TIFO. Yeah, we had the TIFO when we were still in the USL. And just, man, it never materialized from day one. So that situation was worse. But then I got the expectation from Locadia, and I just and then MLS's back tournament happened, and then they never came back up from there. But at least, and this is how I will always judge it from a fan perspective, at least Locadia seemed like he wanted to be here. Mm-hmm. And you can have no talent, but if you work hard and you want to be here, Cincinnati is that type of city where we will support you, and we will want you to be a part of our team, and we hope that the success follows. But with the opposite with Audi, if you don't want to be here and you have that bad body language, like you guys said, drive him to CVG, get him out of here, because it's the complete opposite.
I'm still going to make the case that if FC Cincinnati does not sign Fernando Adi, I think that they win the USL Cup that year. I genuinely believe that. I think there was so much toxicity amongst the locker room when he came in that I think it torpedoed their season, honestly. With that said, I think with Jurgen Locadia, there's almost a sense of you feel sorry. Like you almost feel sorry for him, right? I mean, because nobody wants to see a guy struggle like that, because I think genuinely he had opportunities to score and they just were not going in. Like even the game against Chicago, he's got a chance to score from point blank range. Yes, it was a tight angle. That's an awfully tough shot, and I'm not going to fault him for that. That's a tough one. But like it was just a matter of almost a matter of just inches for Jurgen Locadia, like shots just barely missing. And like for a striker who feeds and thrives off scoring goals, like I get the sense, yes, it's disappointing, but I genuinely just kind of feel sorry that it didn't work out for both.
Yeah, I think his expected goals last season were 5. And so obviously, that's for the whole season. So that's a pretty decent sample size. To score only 1 of those it's tough. I hope the Cincinnati front office and the technical staff take this as a good lesson for Brenner. We've had 2 big money strikers now for different reasons in many ways, but fail to reach expectations. Brenner's already gone off to a tough start, and I think there's still plenty of time. He's young, it's new, but
so how long do we give him?
Well, we just need to learn our lesson. Is we didn't put the right people in front of Locadia or Addy to give them the chance to succeed in some ways on the pitch.
I disagree about Addy, but from an MLS standpoint, yes, I will agree.
Yes, and MLS, it's like, we have a big target man striker, we got to get him the ball. Let's add 4 central defensive midfielders. I'm not forgiving the problems Addy invited upon himself, but the roster build was not set up to help him succeed on the pitch. And Locadia, for different reasons, also struggled. They need to learn their lesson. If they keep repeating the same mistake, we're going to be selling Brenner for half the cost back to Brazil. So the team needs to do better by Brenner, in my opinion.
Come on, Bill. I know you got thoughts. I could see it in your eyes.
I think it's pretty much got said. I mean, it's.
So how long do we give a guy like Brenner?
I wouldn't give up on him this season. I would hang on to him this season. I mean, the money.
I'm not saying get rid of. Like, what should the expectations be for somebody of his price tag?
For his price tag, he should be scoring 10, 12 goals this season.
Oh, I think it should be more than that.
Yeah.
For his price tag, he should be scoring 25 goals, 30 goals. I mean, look what Chicharito's doing now.
Right, but Chicharito is an experienced veteran, and Brenner is 21.
Fair.
Right, he's a young DP.
The price tag is a lot of based on potential, not proven results. He had 1 good season in Brazil, to be fair to him. I don't think we should necessarily think about moving him on right away. We're like, he only scored 2 or 3 goals that first season. Time to move on. No, I just think it's important to look at how Locadia might have. It's important for an organization to reflect and see, how did this go wrong? What can we do next? And to look at the situations with Locadia, I guess more in particular, because Addy is just a more complicated situation personally. But you got to look back at these big deals for these big strikers and go, how did we fail? How do we fail to get them the best out of them? And how can we prevent that from happening with Brenner? Because already you can see he's struggling to get chances in front of goal. Granted, I think he had a few good chances in Chicago, and the more chances you get, the more likely you are to finally hit the back of the net. But I just think that's important to reflect and ensure to the future, because Brenner is an incredibly talented kid. And that's the last thing we want, is another Locadia situation in a year or two where he departs and it's like, well, if only.
Well, he's under contract for like the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So he's not going anywhere anytime soon. But yes, I agree that you've got to give him time. yes, we give it. Do we say, okay, we almost chalk up 2021 as first year, don't sweat it. Like, just get used to being in a different country. You're not even 20 years old yet. Like,
I mean, think about
Stubes.
You were talking about Barreal, how suddenly he's now
Yeah.
showing his quality.
Right. That's what we want out of Brenner.
Yeah, Nate, one of our newest staff writers, who's been really great, runs amazing articles each week. He was talking about how Barreal, I think this is the most minutes he's ever played in one single season before.
Already?
Already. Like, he didn't play that much in I think it was, I can't remember if it was Argentina where he was playing, but he didn't have a lot of experience, and Barreal's maybe younger, or about the same age as Brenner. Brenner, like I said, had one good season in Brazil, and that's a lot you can extrapolate pretty well off that, I believe. Brazil is not a farmers league, but yeah, these players do take time to adjust, even the good ones. You can see Barreal now coming close to a year from his, I think it'll be August or September. It'll be a year since we signed him. Finally starting to show those flashes. I think Brenner has the capability of getting there too. We just
playing more with Acosta, playing more with Barreal,
exactly.
Playing more with, we don't know who's going to be the left wing now because
Tonga, I think.
Tonga.
I don't think long term.
Well, that pass to Cruz, I think, is starting to vindicate Stom's trust in him, and I think he's going to be the starting left winger for quite a while.
Well, by default.
Yeah, I think he is by default. I think Atonga is more natural on the right. I think that
he is.
You're looking at him probably as like a 60-minute sub, potentially to spell Barreal at times and to have some pace at the end of the game. And I think we brought in Calvin Harris. Obviously, he's not been able to play. He had some issues. He looked really good for a minute. Then he did
surgery,
and then he had
surgery on his knee. Yeah. so that's actually the question: is do we see Ben Mines now?
Who's left?
It's him. It's basically him. Yeah. Unless because I think with Cruz gone, I don't see Kubo leaving the midfield.
No,
he's not going to return to left wing. So Atonga is probably starting, and then I guess you have Ben Mines on the bench, or Vasquez. Maybe you go two at the top with Vasquez and Brenner.
So do you sign a DP winger?
Yeah, that's the Brian Weigel comment, right? Throw it up there. So I was just going to comment that obviously, we're getting rid of Locadia. We have a DP spot. We have some roster space. So do you get a winger in at that point? I saw also in there Clifford Adams bringing up Kovacevic. I think we haven't really talked about him, but his loan's up on Wednesday, and he's been 8 minutes this season. So
maybe there's talk that they could extend something, but
like last year we renewed Locadia's loan for an extra year. Maybe that's something we see happen with Kovacevic, and he gets more playing time. I mean, I don't necessarily want to see him go after 8 minutes, but with an international spot, if he's not going to be your guy.
Yeah.
Paul was saying this earlier. We don't need a lot of, I don't think Kovacevic is making a lot of money, but you don't need expensive international roster members on your bench. It's especially on the wing positions where you need people who are going to be contributing every week.
Yep.
Still in training today from reports that I've seen. Maybe something gets worked out. We'll see. But again, this is one of those guys where I look and say, what does FC Cincinnati even have? Because you haven't seen him play very much.
Right.
So
he played the last game of last year
in a tropical storm.
A tropical storm. Right. He had some hustle, which
and
we
looked
always
good.
Like.
I actually thought he looked pretty decent.
Yeah, and then he got injured.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, his loan expires. I guess 2
Wednesday,
days
the 30th. Yeah.
So,
end of June. End of the month.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see. We know Cruz and Matarrita are gone on international duty with the Gold Cup. So what does Jaap Stam do? So I'm going to ask you to put on your prediction caps. Who's going to play in the midfield along Yuya Kubo? I never thought I would ask that question before this season.
I think the obvious answer is, and I don't like always going with the obvious answer, but Stam clearly has guys he trusts. And if you're looking, because he played the same lineup 3 times in 1 week, and if you look at one of the guys who's come on the most off the bench, it's Caleb Stanko. I think he has the versatility to drop into defense that Stom might like throughout the game. He is at least he's not Cruz level athletic, but he definitely has a motor to him. I just think that's going to be the obvious choice to put into the lineup will be Caleb Stanko.
I can't argue with that. I mean, your other options are Makocho and Medunjanin. Obviously, Medunjanin has got some playing time. Makocho's a ghost.
What happened?
Oh man,
I don't know.
This guy was playing almost every minute, and then all of a sudden he's vanished. Like what could possibly have happened here?
I don't know.
Did he give Stom a wedgie?
I was thinking that he stole his coffee or something. I don't. There must be something more to that story because he really has disappeared.
That's a high dollar amount continuously.
Does he make 1.5 million?
Yeah. I mean, max obviously for the roster unless we bought him down more with Tam. But for me, I have to believe that obviously we know Locadia is gone. I won't say we're not going to keep Franco, but
we're not going to keep Franco.
It's hard for me to believe with 8 minutes of playing time total that we would take a risk and keep him. And maybe if we had a short-term loan for a month or something. I mean, if Makocho is not back, like literally in the next game, in my opinion, they've made their decision and he's out, and he's probably getting moved. I don't know how you keep a player like that for that much money sitting on the bench. I would have to imagine we're shopping him if we don't want to play him at all. It's just too much money. At least Medunjanin gets some time at the end of the game to kind of, maybe he doesn't have quite the hustle that Cruz does, but he has some vision and we can bring him in when he's, fresh and everybody else is a little tired. But I mean, Makocho right now, I wouldn't think we're going to see him anymore the way things have been going. So
the only other guy who's gotten a lot of minutes is Nick Hagland. Do they go back to 3 at the back, or I think Subs, you mentioned this. I'm curious what anyone else thinks. Do you put Jeff Cameron in the midfield?
No,
and you bring
I said it in
Hagland
jest. Dang it, Clay! I said it off the air. I didn't even want to talk about it because it's so stupid to even think about. No, you can't change that now. They got back-to-back clean sheets. Cameron and Viacia have to play together at center back. Like you cannot. No.
Oh,
no,
I agree. I just wanted to call you out for it.
No. I said it in jest. Dang it, Clay.
I'm not going to be on the show.
Bottle over your head.
I'm not going to be on the show for next month at least.
Yeah. Soup said.
No, there's no. You can't. No way. You cannot.
Yeah. I agree.
You tattoo that on your starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
No way. No. I would rather put in center mid Stanko or Medunjanin. But again, if you're not going to play Makocho, you got to move him.
I think Bill is right. If we don't see him play against Houston, he's probably on the transfer list for the summer. I think we could probably write that in ink.
Yeah. Was he an international as well?
Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So again, we have issues with international, right? I mean, we've got people like Van der Ver sitting on that injury list who is, potentially coming back at the beginning of July, and we've got to give up, an international for him. And I mean, we got to start clearing out some of these if we're going to bring in new players. We can't have all of our internationals go away and just be replaced by internationals coming back from injury. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo what you guys have said about Caleb Stanko being the man. And after that comment, Clay, about Cameron joining the midfield, you're going to be ghosted off this show like Makocho was from the starting 11.
Whoa! Luckily, I don't make as much money as Kamahela Makocho, so it's a decision that Subs can afford to make.
Yeah. Luckily, you don't make as much money. I would be like, unfortunately, I don't make as much money.
Oh, fortunately for Subs, I don't make as much money as Kamahela Makocho. So if he leaves me on the bench, it's not going to cost him a lot.
Oh, this is a good comment on YouTube from Brian Giles. He says, put Alex Steck in midfield before moving Cameron.
I love it.
She could ball, by the way. So
oh, yeah.
Put her in.
Let's do it.
I'm all for that. Love your thoughts, though. Get in touch with us. Feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. What is Stom going to do with the lineup now with Cruz and Mazzarita gone? We know we can probably pencil in Castillo playing left back for the time being while Mazzarita is out. And I would say did okay against Colorado. I mean, it wasn't like we were like, oh man,
He wasn't the reason we lost 2-0.
No.
No.
Nope. No, he was not.
He's a little more defensive than Matarrita, so he may be the reason that we got nothing. Matarrita definitely brings a lot to the attack for sure.
He does. That's true.
But I think coming back around to the center mid thing, I think Clay's right on Stanko. I mean, if you just think about what we've seen from Kubo lately, right? I mean, he's definitely been much more defensive. He is aggressive. He is going in for some pretty hard tackles, collecting some yellow cards along the way. It actually kind of reminds me of Stanko a little bit. So I think, Medunian is not that crunching, hard tackling guy who's going to, just make that tactical foul at that right time. So,
yeah, I hope if Stanko does get the nod, I hope that gives Kubo some license to move further forward, like Cruz has done recently. Which, by the way, who called Alan Cruz returning to form for FC Cincinnati this season? I'm curious.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Was someone on this show?
No,
I
don't remember any of this.
I don't know. There's someone. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, yeah, it was me. That was me. I told you so.
So let's move on. FC Cincinnati goes on the road to take on Houston, who apparently is also going to be missing quite a few of their players due to Gold Cup duty as well. So we'll see what happens. Can FC Cincinnati continue? I don't believe in their Major League Soccer history. I don't believe they've ever won 3 matches in a row. That would be quite something. That would definitely be quite something. All right, so I want to look back. We've got a few minutes here left on the show. For those of you who don't remember what happened on June 28th, 2017, 4 years ago today, FC Cincinnati knocked off the Chicago Fire in the U.S. Open Cup in penalties in front of a packed house at Nippert Stadium. We always post on this day on our CST social feeds that it's Mitch Hildebrandt Day. But in all actuality, everybody on that team needs to be celebrated. But Mitch obviously gets the headlines because he stood on his head, made save after save, made the saves in the penalty shootout. I went back and rewatched the penalty shootout here today, and it's just I just go back to this day and how special it was very early on in the soccer timeline in Cincinnati. And so I just want to go back to your memories of that day. Bill, I know were you in the Bailey drumming that night?
Sure. Where would I be other than that on a night like that?
Well, I just knew you also had tickets elsewhere.
Yeah. No, so. I try to make the big ones in the Bailey though, right? So no, I always think of it kind of more like Andrew Wiedemann Day because he's the one who actually won the game.
It was that close to being Andrew Wiedemann Day.
Yeah, it should have been Andrew Wiedemann Day.
It was onside. It was.
If it wasn't for no VAR.
Ball never.
There you
lies,
go, Ken.
right?
There you go, Ken. If we had VAR in the U.S. Open Cup, we wouldn't have gone to penalties.
I don't know if then we wouldn't overturned.
But then we wouldn't have had. I think honestly, they should teach that penalty shootout to goalkeepers in training. It's one of the best at any level goalkeeper performances I've seen.
The funny thing is, I went back and I watched that penalty shootout today, and I watched probably 3 times. Those penalties all would have been retaken because Mitch Hildebrandt was not on that line. But back then,
to be fair,
you could come off your line.
That wasn't necessarily the rule.
But if we had VAR, it would have never got there, and it would not have been a problem. See,
that's true.
So again, VAR.
Actually, we should have put away that match in regulation anyway. I mean, there was chances. I think Corbin Bone had a beautiful chance.
Yeah.
So no.
I remember my friend and I when we were going. It was our second game that we saw the Columbus Crew game the week before that we went to this one, and we said, yeah, they're probably not going to win, but if we could see Bastian Schweinsteiger score, that'd be kind of cool. And guess what?
You kind of did.
Bastian Schweinsteiger was the only Fire player to make a penalty kick, and FCC won the game. So we got best of both worlds.
What do you remember about that night, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the second biggest match in my memory behind the Crystal Palace one for some obvious reasons. I remember the big hype leading up to it was that we got moved from ESPN2 to ESPN, which I thought was really cool. And I think just kind of solidified the spotlight that Cincinnati had on soccer. I was in the general admission because I was a poor college student. But that was the first time that I had a big group of friends with me. It wasn't just me and like one other person. It was like 8 of us. And I remember I had orange and blue paint that I did the little I can't think of what they call it.
War
The
paint.
eye paint. Yeah, war paint there. And I probably picked up a few too many people that night. Probably some people I didn't know. But I mean, and kind of how Suze was going and talking about like rewatching it. There's very few things that I can rewatch that still give me goosebumps. One of those being when Jay Bruce hit the walk-off home run back in 2010, and the second one being that penalty shootout. The win against the Columbus Crew was great, but it doesn't have that same feeling, that same intensity as this one did. And it kind of just solidified, we're not going anywhere. Regardless of what happens to us, we will be we're a force, not just in terms of the club, but as the fan base, I think, as well. That was really our shining moment to solidify that this is no longer just a unique ticket item. This is mainstream. This is the hottest thing in town.
Yeah. For me, it's a special moment for me. Actually, just a special day in general. I've got, for those of you who don't know, and if you're new to the show, I've got 12-year-old twins. And it's pretty rare that I have a day with just one of them, because usually we've got both of them. I came down with my son, and we spent the day at Kings Island, which is somewhere we hadn't been. He had never, well, I guess he had been there once before, but I hadn't been there in a really, really long time. So we spent the day at KI, and then we went to the match. And we had general admission tickets as well, but we chose to sit on the east sideline, upper deck, in the very top row. So like we had a bird's eye view of everything. And as the match went on, I go back and I remember our show from the Sign Museum, Bill. And do you remember I laid it out word for word what was going to happen? If you don't believe me, there's an episode where you can go back and play it. Yep. I said that FC Cincinnati were going to win in a penalty shootout, and Mitch Hildebrandt is going to be the savior. And sure enough, it happened. And I just remember that was probably the first time my son and I had that sport moment with your dad. You know, like that was like, I still remember growing up and having that moment with my dad with the 90 Reds. And just this was the first time he and I had that moment. And so it was just really awesome to be a part of it. And I don't get down to matches a whole lot, but like the handful of matches that I do get to are pretty special. And that one will always, for me, be a big deal, not because of just the result, but that experience I had with Ben and seeing his reaction to the penalties and him getting nervous and excited. And I just still physically remember sitting in that upper deck. And, you know, like when a crowd roars, like how you physically like feel it.
Yeah.
Where I was when that save was made, the last save, like the physical feeling of the noise and the energy and it just was like, whoa. And it was so, it's like, man, I miss that feeling. I need that feeling again. So man, this week for the orange and blue, man, has this been refreshing. We have freaking needed it. So always great to look back at our memories of that fire match. It really cemented FCC's place in American soccer, and it showed the world that, hey, that, FC Cincinnati belongs in Major League Soccer, and now they haven't shown it in Major League Soccer, but they got there, and it was an exciting day. So we want to hear from you, FCC fans. What were your memories of that match against the Fire? Mitch Hildebrandt Day, June 28th, 2017. Hit us up, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. All right, it's that time of the show where we wrap things up and put a bow on this bad boy. Before we do that, make sure you rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Boy, was I wrong last week, gents. I said on the show that we hadn't had a new review, and then we immediately wrapped the show, and Boston goes, Subs, there's like 6 new reviews, and they're all about March to Match Day. I'm like, what? So kudos to everybody who went out and left reviews. Nobody left a review, though, about Shandy's. Nothing. Like, that was your task, was to leave a review last week about Shandy's, and it just, CSTers. Come on now. So we need a theme, gentlemen, for this week's reviews. What should people leave their reviews about. Should it be about the fire match from 4 years ago? Should it be, what should it be? Should it be saying goodbye to Locadia? I'm throwing it to you, gents. What should it be?
At the fire match, right? Does anybody remember Austin Berry, the wink that he gave the other team on the coin flip?
I don't. So even went back and watched it today and missed that.
Right. We went to penalty kicks, right? And they had to go and flip the coin for like who gets to choose which side we do the penalties against. And Austin won the coin flip, and he points at the Bailey and winks at the guy and walks off. That I think would be good for a review.
Okay.
Work that in somehow.
Oh, Brian brings up a good one. Brian in our YouTube chat tonight. The Brian Waggle.
Oh, yeah. That's
Acosta
a new
being
one.
Michael Bradley's daddy.
Yes.
I think I might lean that way. Bill, that was a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a good one. So hit us up, Apple Podcasts.
Michael Bradley.
So let us know. Leave us a review so we can read it on next week's show. All right. Paul Barbanchak. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show with us again this week. For those of you listening to the audio podcast, Paul is an FCC fan down in that city we don't want to mention. But I'll tell you what, he's decked out in Reds gear and FCC gear. You would have never known he lived in that town that rhymes with Loserville. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show, buddy.
Oof, that hits a little hard. I am that city down south in some ways. I do have nice employment with the university down there. But no, thank you for having me on. This has been a blast. I've been on the show a couple times, but it's always so negative. I've had some heavy shows with COVID, and then the other couple shows I've done, FC Cincinnati is lost. So it's finally nice to get to talk about some wins and some happiness and reflect on good memories. And I have a little bit of excitement, and now I can't wait to be absolutely heartbroken on Saturday. It'll be a great day.
True Cincinnati fan.
Well, that's not true, Paul, because I've been drinking shandies tonight, and they're going to win against the Dynamo. So
if they win against the Dynamo, and with you drinking those shandies, I think I'll get a 6-pack delivered up to you. Okay, how about that? If they win and they get their third match, I'll either get you a 6-pack, I'll Venmo you, I'll do something. That way we can keep the tradition alive.
I like your thinking, Paul. I do. I really do. I don't know if I didn't have to ask Ben to bring me one down this week. I came prepared. I brought 2. I've almost finished number 2 here. But Paul, as always, appreciate your work at CST, and thanks for being on the show again, brother.
Thank you.
All right, Clay, final thoughts?
Thanks for having me on again. Joy hanging out with you guys, especially on good times. I just want to say a little bit briefly about what we saw in the Euros a couple weeks back now with Christian Eriksen suffering a sudden cardiac arrest on the pitch. I don't know if some of you were watching like I was live. It's easily probably the worst thing I've ever seen on television, like during a sport match in particular. I don't want to just, detail it too much because it is pretty traumatic, and, a lot of people are really stunned by it. I want to say, one, I'm really glad that he's been discharged and he's with his family and he's alive with us. That's obviously the most important thing. But I'm really glad to see as well is I know the Premier League in England is donating 2,000 defibrillators, AEDs, to local soccer clubs and soccer pitches across the country. And I think that's just a really important thing because that easily, without a doubt, saved Christian Eriksen's life. So I just think that's something we need to be talking about. Anyone who works in youth soccer in Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, let's make sure we have those AEDs. It's always good to have. It's always, particularly, it could be life-saving. So I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad Denmark is through to the quarterfinals. They're easily the neutrals' favorite. It's been fun just to watch this much soccer all the time, and it's good to see FC Cincinnati win. I just wanted to speak about that because I think it's important I think it was an important moment for the world to sort of stop and realize how important this really is and how important life is before sport sometimes. And so it was really nice to come together around all that. And I'm glad to see we are taking good lessons from that incident. So again, thanks for having me on, Soups.
No problem. Appreciate you being on. I agree with you that Denmark now the team I will be rooting for now that France was eliminated today. My team in the CST Euro draft took a big old poo-poo. Maybe it was just fitting, right? Because 4 years ago today, Taylor Twellman calling a penalty shootout win for FC Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Today, calling a penalty shootout for France versus Switzerland. Talk about a day in the Euros. What a fun day of soccer it really was today.
One of the best tournament days.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you being on the show, Clay. And last, but certainly not the least, Bill Wolf. Bill, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah. I always have at least some thoughts, right?
Always.
But maybe not my final thoughts, but they're thoughts. Yeah. So obviously we're all looking towards the next weekend or this coming weekend in Houston. Wondering if this.
Oh wait, next home match is Crew, isn't it?
Yeah. See, you got ahead of me. So I was gonna say, so we're looking ahead towards Houston, but right behind that,
hell is real.
Hell is real, right? So that's back home. COVID restrictions are down. This is going to be another sold out game. I have no doubt. It's going to be insane, not because it's just, sold out, but because of course the atmosphere of hell is real and the fact that we're playing Columbus. But it's also going to be just like an incredibly fun, exciting moment, I think, for the new stadium to finally have a hell is real there. There's other things going on that I just wanted to point out to people and hopefully people will get involved, but we believe that we will have the TIFO rigging finally installed into the stadium. So the supporters groups are planning a TIFO. Obviously, if something happens and the club doesn't come through, then that will be very sad. But there is a lot of work that will be going on over the next 2 weeks. And we're starting tracing. We've actually bought so much material that it's like carloads material, like truckloads of fabric, literally like, humongous boxes of fabric. And that's all been delivered to our warehouse and we've been sewing it, and tracing is beginning this week and painting will be next week. So, please be on the lookout. If you are a member of a supporters group, then start checking in on your Slack or Discord channels, your internal messaging emails. I'm sure we will all be sending lots of messages out with timeframes once we know them. It's going to be very busy. I would imagine it's going to be something almost every night, maybe for the next couple of weeks. I hope, because I think we have a lot to do. And if you're not a part of a supporters group, there's certainly no requirement that you be a member of a supporters group to come help us. It might just be a little harder to find out, but please, reach out to the different groups and ask if you're interested. We'd love to have you come and paint, maybe eat some pizza and drink some beer, and be part of the first TIFO in TQL Stadium. It should, I believe, I hope, will be the largest one we've done. I don't know, because I'm not like directly connected into all the design channels, and there's been a lot of
Crush This League was a pretty big one.
It was a pretty big one, but we have a lot more space in the new Bailey 2.0. And I think the only issue we have is could we actually get enough material fast enough to pull the trigger? I know we got the material ultimately, but I just don't know if it all came fast enough for us to make the decision on how big we could go. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be the largest one we've done. And obviously we'll be playing with the rigging and other stuff in some fun ways. Obviously trying to be, doing something new, but also not maybe too new, because you don't want to reach too far too fast. But yeah, anyway, it should be fun, and hopefully everybody starts to get involved. I think we've had some painting nights already up to this point, doing some banners. Obviously, if you've looked, we have banners across the top, in like the ADA sections and around the capo stands and such. And we've had some paint nights. They haven't had a lot of people come out to them, but I think the team hasn't been winning, and we haven't had the big TIFO yet. So I'm really kind of hoping this is going to kind of bring the whole supporters group culture back together and have that family feel that we have when we all get together and really make something phenomenal happen. And, realistically, I don't know if you guys, watch a lot of it. I know we watch a lot of MLS games, but I don't know how many fans watch all the different teams, but Cincinnati's TIFO game is on point. I mean, we are, in my opinion, one of the better teams in the league as far as the creativity we put and the quality of the TIFOs we put out there. I mean, maybe places like Portland, that have more space and more rigging. Seattle's pretty good. Exactly. So, but some of those guys, they've had the advantage of space that we haven't had. So I think, give us another year or two and we'll show them how to do it.
All right. I know they've got, they're excited in that town up north, their new stadium. I think they're opening it this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is their opening.
Are they
That's
playing
a stadium?
are they playing in front of a full
It's a belt
capacity
buckle.
bill?
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah, I actually didn't think it was a stadium. That's surprising. This looks like just a giant
Belt buckle.
belt buckle just landed in downtown Columbus.
Freaking leprechaun belt buckle.
Yeah, I drove by it and I was like, yeah, this is not great.
Is it a advertisement for a website? Right? Lower.com?
Yeah,
If people were mad about TQL, oh boy. Imagine lower.com. Ugh.
And on that note, that's how we end the show this week, talking about that team up north. I'm just going to say this, it was a great week to be a fan of FC Cincinnati. Yes, they won. Yes, it was the two worst teams right now in the Eastern Conference. Am I excited they won? Yes. I'm going to temper my expectations and just ride the wave. I'm just going to drink my shandy and we're going to enjoy some FCC soccer here until it ends. Right now, they're on a winning streak. So let's enjoy it. FCC fans, let's be kind to one another. That is going to do it for this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. For the Wolfman, Bill Wolf, Clay Winstead, and Paul Barbanchak, I'm Subs reminding you to watch your tackles, see us tiers. We will see you all. Oh, by the way, have a happy and safe 4th of July, and we will see you all next week.